So just for the information of council, we're gonna move to the items under new business, which was on the on-table agenda.
No, what about the?
No, hold on a second. Until tomorrow, no,
Oh,
just,
okay.
no. The two business, two new matters, Councillor Rhodes' motion about Cape Roger Curtis via Thompson Road, and Councillor Jennings' recommendations for the Advisory Planning Commission are gonna be moved till tomorrow because we're running out of time. We need to deal with our Director of Finance.
And in light of that, what time should I be planning for? Do it as fast as I can?
Yes, please.
Okay, don't take 90 minutes.
No.
All right, thank you very much. So I want to talk through what you have here first before I talk about any details. And so you have a report from me, which is page 149 through to 152. And then there are several attachments, which I've called attachment 1, 2, and 3. And 1 and 2 are ones that you see all the time. I keep bringing the same ones back in hopes that familiarity will make you feel comfortable. But I did throw in a little bit of a new version of, it's really the same thing as attachment 2, which is a listing of all of our reserves, but looking at it in a different way as suggested by the Finance Review Task Force. And that is to talk about our capital and the impact on those savings accounts that we have, the dwindling of them. So we'll talk about the details of those later. I just wanted you to know what attachments are there. So in my report, I outlined for you the 5 resolutions that July 25th were made around preparing the budget for 2012 through 2016. But quite quickly it became obvious that some of those resolutions were competing against each other and would be pretty much impossible to achieve as they all conflicted and were a challenge. So from that, the new council quite quickly came up with the idea of establishing a select committee called the Finance Review Task Force, which we've just celebrated. And they have been wonderful. I found them very fresh to deal with and really affirmed what I've been feeling. So it was really wonderful from my perspective. And I've heard the same from the other managers that had the opportunity to talk with them. So I've listed their main outcomes, their main mandates. And to date, they focused mostly on mandate 1, which was to provide potential budget adjustments for council consideration. Well, it was to provide advice and recommendations, but their report does focus on suggestions for the 2012 budget specifically. So I have incorporated most of their recommendations in what I've presented to you today. I want to make sure that you understand what is incorporated in the budget and what is not been included in the budget, what I've presented. So way back in the fall, the management team pulled together a budget, and it really hasn't changed a lot. This was presented January 23rd to council, January 23rd, 2012. So what I've done is said, here's what you last saw on January 23rd, and here's what's changed. And that's what's on my 1-page summary on page 151. So you'll recall back on January 23rd, there was a potential I think it was 9.8%. It's kind of fluctuated up and down as little small adjustments have come through, but it was clearly unacceptable, and we knew that. So that was what was presented, and what's different since then is what I've outlined on page 151. So it's kind of a few of plus and minuses, some of which are the Finance Review Task Force suggestions. Their suggestions are on page 142 of your agenda package, or page 14 of their 20-page report. So they came up with 26 suggestions to enable staff to finalize the 2012 budget. Of those 26 suggestions, what I have not included, item number 3, additional cost of managing major capital projects. It says TBD beside that. There is no amount in there for the budget. I have not included anything for row 7, reduce recreation expense budget by $25,000. That has not been incorporated in the budget. Number 8, reduce library expense budget by $25,000. That has not been included in the budget. Speaking of library, going back up to row 5, defer hire of additional library staff, that has been included. I'm telling you what's not been included because it's a shorter list. Row 9, reduce community grants by 1/3, that has not been included. Revenues, number 10, 11, and 12. Nothing has been included for those, but certainly we know that those are an important revenue source for us to be pursuing. Items number 24, 25, and 26 down below are not included. So that is, we are still proposing to contribute $30,000 to the Civic Facility Fund, and we are still proposing to contribute the full amount to the roads, drainage, and rockfall protection, and we'll go back and talk about the amount that will be contributed. And we are still proposing to contribute to the fire protection reserve. So those have not been followed up, but it's not to say, at your request, that I will make changes. What I have included, even in spite of, you'll recall in your minutes earlier today, you were asked to approve the minutes of March 12th, 2012. At that meeting, we talked about the different capital requests. And if I can refer you to my new attachment 3, I've listed the capital requests down the left-hand side. And you'll recall they're called PC1, PC2, that was project and capital. So I listed 26 capital requests, and we talked about them on March 12th. And council went through, and they didn't actually say yes, no, they kind of gave a nod or a non-nod. There was no motion around it, it was more of a discussion, and from that I then developed budget. So PC, the Tunstall Bay boat launch, PC 5. If you were referred to the minutes, it says, process is stalled at the moment. Suggestion for the manager of engineering and operations to provide a report to council before making a decision to put this item on hold. I recall council was saying, you know what, if it's not going, let's just put it on hold. But I have included it because I think we have more accurate information now. Did you just go and ask to have him brought in? Okay. So I'm gonna keep moving past that, but
It is included.
it is included. Yeah, so, and how you can tell that, so if you, on my big new attachment 3, if you go to PC 5, it says Tunstall Bay boat launch, $205,374. And you recall part of the challenge on that was how are we gonna pay for that? So if you go way across, last year was motioned, there was a motion to fund it from 50% from the Community Parks Reserve, 50% from the Recreation and Other Community Use Reserve. So that's how I've shown it continue to be funding, and we're gonna have a conversation about that in a little bit. Let me continue on with what I've kind of gone against previous discussions to include. The other thing that I've included, if you go down to PC 23, salt brine making equipment. This was maybe a little bit of a forgetfulness on my part, because if I'm reading these minutes now, PC 23, it says salt brine making equipment, council agreed to remove this item. I didn't remember that, and I'm sorry about that. I was reading this earlier and I was like, uh-oh, forgot about that. So it is included. So if you look on the big attachment 3, PC 23, salt brine making equipment, I'm showing it funded from capital and stabilization fund.
Could you remind us what page you're on?
156, yeah.
156.
The big page, yes, 156. But I'm also looking at the minutes from March 12th. So I just try to make sure you know what I've included versus not included. So Tunstall Bay I've included, salt brine I've included. That has no impact on the tax rise, but it does deplete our reserves and our certain savings. The other thing that is included is cost of living allowance for staff at 2.3%, which is, our policy says to pay cost of living to staff in accordance with November of the previous year's cost of living as published by the Stats BC, and that's 2.3%. So that's what's incorporated in the budget at this point.
I think it was also recommended by the finance committee as well, is that?
That's part of an issue to be addressed by the human resource committee.
Yeah, I don't think there was a clear recommendation to do that, no. So some other things I wanna be sure to discuss. Is Will here yet? No?
He just was.
Oh, he was and then he went? Oh, okay.
Casey just went to get him.
Oh, okay.
He was here and he just went.
One of the things I wanted to be sure to discuss, on page 153, the big ledger sheet, which is called attachment 1, I know some people might say they get overwhelmed by all these numbers. For me, being a numbers person, I like to see, well, what did it look like in the last couple of years? So maybe this is overwhelming for you. What I'm presenting to you is 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 actual, 2011 budget, so you can see the budget versus actual. And then we're required to present 5 years of budget. So I've got 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16 budget. So if you look at 2011 actual and 2011 budget, you'll see, if you were to flip over to page 2, which is page 154, at the very bottom, 2011 actual, the very bottom number says 6.39%, but what it also says is we have a surplus of $166,972. So that's something else I want to talk to you about. We budgeted to have a surplus of, whoa, wait a minute. We budgeted to have a surplus of $84,000. In our budget policy, we set aside a contingency for unplanned events. And last year's set aside was $84,000. So we knew we were gonna have we hoped we would have a small surplus. As reported before to council, we had some cost overruns. The OCP legal defense cost overrun, the OCP actual process of bringing through the OCP went over, and a few other smaller amounts went over, but some things we were able to save from have resulted in this $166,972. Most of that is due to, we thought we would have this level of staffing, but because of staffing changes, or staff off sick, or staff taking a pay without, or a vacation without pay, we were not able to, we didn't spend all the money that we planned to. One of the biggest areas is in public works, in engineering. Part of that's from snow removal. We didn't have the snow that we were worried we might have. I mean, you can't plan for sure what you might have for snow. So 30,000 of that is from underspending in the snow removal. We budgeted to do some Snug Cove dock maintenance, but we weren't ready to do it. We needed to do some research on what needed to be done. So that didn't get spent. Some drainage work didn't get spent, and other engineering costs, labor costs weren't spent. That's the biggest area. There was a little bit of savings. We didn't spend as much on interest expense overall for the municipality. Again, you want to budget cautiously just in case interest rates went up. I did budget on the higher side, but we didn't end up needing that much. And a little bit of underspending in our recreation program, again, due to staffing. We didn't staff up at the same level as we had budgeted to staff because of some things we didn't anticipate. So overall, we ended up with a $166,972 surplus, which is a nice contrast to 2010, where you'll see we had a $57,000 deficit, if you read that across. Does everybody see the row I'm looking at on page 2? Okay. So I just wanted to point that out, that one of the things when you flip back onto page 1, so this is basically our operating budget, this whole document. When you flip back on all those E1, E2, E3, E4, E5, E6, E7s, those are our day-to-day operating expenses, and I tried to break them down into the type of expenses they were. It's useful to look at the 2011 actual against the 2011 budget and ask the question of why is it different? And that helps inform the 2012 budget. So the other thing I wanted to be sure that you were aware of, what's not included in this is we have 7 water local areas. Those meetings are ongoing in the next, we've had a couple of them, and the rest are in the next week and 2 weeks. By April 23rd, when we next talk about budget, we will have had all 7 water meetings and the sewer meeting. And then that will start to get incorporated in the budget document. But at this point, it's got no water or sewer in here at all. Those are self-funded entities, so their revenue equals their expense, but it does bump up greatly the magnitude of our budget. So that's what's not included in here. Is Will back yet? No, he's not. Okay.
But as you said, it's revenue neutral.
The water and sewer are revenue neutral, that's correct. Each of the water districts, I can't say 100% every one of them, but almost all of them are looking at fee increases because of infrastructure needs on the horizon. But I'll be bringing bylaws for those forward too. But I just want you to know that's not included in here. So back to my page 151, where I summarize what council saw on January 23rd, meaning you saw attachment 1, the 2-page operating revenue and expense document. You saw that on January 23rd. The only changes are my 24 items I've listed below. So if you're wondering what's different than what we talked about last time we met, those are the only changes. And it's now been brought down, thanks very much to the Finance Review Task Force suggestions, down to a 2.9% tax rise. Not counting the solid waste parcel tax, which I am proposing needs to go up, given council's discussion at a previous meeting, which I have written down somewhere. I think it's in my report, where they, I'm proposing to increase the solid waste parcel tax from $192 to $204 per folio. And that is because of the extra picking up of green waste during, I believe it was November and December. Signing a new contract, therefore we'll need some legal costs, and then the committee will have some costs. So, I would like council, I know that there is already a, I don't know what you call that when there was no actual motion to say don't include the submarine, and yet there was a council desire to exclude it. So if,
It was done by consensus.
By
It was
consensus?
Similar to.
so should I just take it out then, based on there was a
I
consensus?
think so, yeah, that was, yeah.
Okay, it had no impact on the tax rise, it just depleted savings. Okay, I will take that out. Is there any other items in there that you've seen that you would like changed that you know of? I have added the extra cost for the video recording of the council meetings. And everything's listed on my 1 through 24. Yes?
And the housing corporation cost is where in here?
That was
Hopefully that's an
30.
incomplete word.
It is.
Which is a question I was just gonna ask. What's
yeah.
in that?
Was it 3,500? I'm
Yeah.
trying to remember.
For
Yes,
this
that
year.
is included in there, yeah. It does have an impact on future years because there was was it 7,000, I believe, in the 2013, 14,
Yeah.
15, 16?
Yeah.
So where does that show going forward?
It's under planning, I think. Not planning, but what's that called, Allison, that area that?
Even the strategic plan?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah,
And you've got a line somewhere for
Yeah.
strategic plan?
I do.
E5.
I
There's
believe-
nothing in E5 that's going forward.
So what Allison means is that there are some things in previous years where we know we're gonna continue the cost, and so instead of not taking the money out of savings or putting the money back into surplus, we set it aside as a carry forward fund. And so especially smaller things like that we know we're gonna do work for, there was money set aside as a carry forward item for that work for and that's the money where the 3,500 will come from for 2012.
You could just
There's nothing
refresh my
going forward.
memory.
In the strategic planning and other planning initiatives, there's nothing going forward.
I do have it in there somewhere. I'm sorry, I'll have to look then as to where it is. It's maybe under community grants, I can't remember. Sorry, I don't have it off the top of my head where it is, but it is in there.